If you want to build a business, you need to listen to this for the next 20 minutes. It will be the questions you ask yourself before creating a business that will help you to understand, are you even headed in the right direction? Let's get to it on the Fearless Investor Podcast. Hey everyone, welcome into the Fearless Investor Podcast. You're listening to me, Kyle Stanley, and we're talking today about something that I am very passionate about, which is creating a business and where to start, how to start, and why you are even doing it in the first place. I'm going to give you 9 questions. Okay. You're going to ask yourself 9 questions before you even start a business to help you understand what business that'll even be. You might be sitting there thinking right now that you're going to be let's call it a business owner in health and fitness. And you're thinking to yourself, I would be really good at this because A, B, C, and D. But after today's episode, you might actually take a look at that and say, maybe it's not health and fitness. Maybe that's not where I should be. And so, if you're listening to the podcast a lot, I always talk about Airbnb. I talk about real estate. We talk about other investing vehicles. But today it's all about investing into the right vehicle for yourself. It might not be real estate. It might not be, day trading. It might not be Airbnb. It might be something different, but you have to ask yourself these questions. And these are the questions that I asked myself when I was starting my businesses. And so just a little bit of backstory. By the way, before we get too deep into this, make sure you're subscribed, make sure you're reviewing. Make sure if you haven't already, go to fearlesskyle.com, download our Airbnb profit calculator so that you can get onto your first step of starting an Airbnb business and understanding whether or not you have an Airbnb deal or an Airbnb dud on your hands. So let me give you a little bit of context here and backstory. As many of you know, I've had a lot of careers. I've had a lot of different things that I tried to master before getting into real estate and Airbnb. And a lot of things that failed, and they failed for a number of different reasons. But the number one thing at the end of the day was that I just couldn't see myself doing these things for the rest of my life or finding a way to exit profitably. So I had a business where I was doing videos for high school athletes that wanted to go on to play in college. I got tired of a lot of honestly, the parents were a big thing. The low ceiling that we had in the business, we just weren't able to make it very profitable, which didn't really make it very attractive to sell to someone. And it was just a grind. We never found a way to automate it. Then I moved into an MLM that, just preached passive income. And at the end of the day, I just couldn't see myself doing that for the rest of my life because it wasn't truly passive, at least not the way in which I'd tried so hard to build it. So there was these number of things that I felt like, if I just asked myself these questions in the beginning, I'm not saying I wouldn't have done those businesses, but I would have been able to identify things a lot earlier on that would have told me, hey, should I keep on trying at this, or should I go ahead and, cut my losses and move on to trying to find the next thing? And so at the end of the day, what we're talking about is, what do you want your lifestyle to look like? And if your business can fit your lifestyle, then you have an absolute winner on your hands. And so that's not the number one question. That is the overall arching theme of this, is what kind of lifestyle do you want to have? I was talking with a friend recently who, she said, hey, I want to start a business, but I have no idea what type of business. And, we started asking a few questions, and she starts talking about, maybe something in medical, or maybe something in health and fitness, or maybe something. And she's kind of going back and forth. And I just said, well, what do you want your lifestyle to look like? And when she started talking about, well, I want to travel and I want to be able to, spend more time with my family and all these different things. And it was like, okay, well, then that's what you need to make sure your business is built around. And if it's not going to help you get there, then is that something that you're really going to be passionate about? Maybe you're passionate about it now, but then when it becomes an obligation because you've started a business and now that business might even start to own you, are you still going to be passionate about it? So we kind of got to this conversation that led me to what are some actual good questions that she can ask herself, aside from just, will it build into this lifestyle and will she remain passionate about it? So I'm going to give you the 9 questions that I think my business has completely provided for me. and has helped me to be able to now say, okay, if I can ask myself these 9 questions again, if I ever start another business, or if I want to help someone start another business, then this can give a clear path of what that looks like. So number one, you have to ask yourself, what kind of time freedom do you want, or do you want time freedom? It's funny because that's such a silly question, right? Like, do you want time freedom? Of course, most people want time freedom, but maybe you're listening to this, and I know a lot of people, especially here in Fresno, a couple that they're like, if we have extra time, uh, we don't want to have extra time. We're very bored when we have extra time, and so if that's the kind of person that you are, you need to define: do you want time freedom, and how much time freedom? And then start thinking to yourself, what am I going to do with that time freedom? If you have no reason for the time freedom and you're just going to veg out and watch TV, is that really time freedom that's fulfilling and worth it? So you have to define how much and what will you do with that time freedom. The next question is, and this kind of goes into what the time freedom would be: do you want to travel? Do you want your business to be the vehicle that gets you traveling or allows you to travel? So for example, I have another friend who has a business consulting industry that they get to travel all the time to meet with other clients. And they really enjoy that because they're like, they get to go experience different places, West Coast, East Coast, sometimes international as well. And they love that. They love being able to travel. Or on the other side of it, does it create the time freedom and the financial freedom to allow you to travel to where you want for vacations whenever you want? So that's a big question, I think, because a lot of us get into it. I used to want to be a sports anchor for, or not sports anchor, a play-by-play broadcaster for a baseball team, especially Chicago Cubs. That's my team. But then I really started thinking about it after I kind of left that industry. I'm like, would I have been happy living out of a suitcase 6 months out of the year and going from the same city, the same states, all the way over again and again and again, and staying in the same hotels, and really like only being there for work and not being able to explore the city as much as I would want to? And the answer to that was like, no, that sounds actually kind of dreadful. So it was very much like, if I had asked myself those questions before, I probably would have realized that that's not the kind of lifestyle I want. Sure, I love baseball and I would love to be the guy for especially the Chicago Cubs. That'd be amazing. But do I really want to be traveling that much? That could get old really quick. So those are the questions for travel that you should be asking yourself. Is passion important? I think that's a huge one, because to me, it's not. All right. And here's what I want to say about this: is passion important? Um, a lot of people will tell you, build a business that if you did not get paid, you would still do it all the time. You would love it. You would absolutely thrive on it, even if you weren't getting paid. And I think that is a great dream. But when you are tied to a business that now, instead of you doing it for free or in your free time, now it's time that's required of you in order to build it, in order to sustain it, in order to maintain it. Now it becomes like this boss to you, that if you don't want to put in this time, you'd rather be doing other things. Suddenly your passion becomes your obligation and you lose your passion. And I have a very good example of this. When I was a sports anchor, I love sports. But then when it was required of me to put in a certain amount of hours to work for someone else, to meet their standards of what they wanted within that sports department, to get paid very little to do so, I started to resent not just the job, but sports. And that sucks. Like, to lose a passion from something that is so big in your life to now being like, you know what? I don't even want to go home and watch sports because I've been forced to do it all day long. And so I think a really good example of this is personal trainers or gym owners. They think, or even like restaurant owners too. I think that's a good one that just came to my mind. But they think, hey, I'm really passionate about health and wellness. I'm really passionate about helping other people. I'm really passionate about seeing people achieve their physical goals and feeling better. And then they get into it. Let's just take a gym owner, for example. And now they have all these expenses, all this financial stress. They have to get out from under this debt they just got. They have to convince people to become clients. They have to convince people to stay clients. Their clients aren't getting results because they're only in there for 3 hours a week, but the rest of the 100 and whatever that is, 65 hours for the rest of the week, they have no control over these people. And so suddenly, before they know it, they're strapped with financial debt, with time debt, with clients that aren't getting results because they're not doing the right things, or they're not staying motivated, they're not staying accountable. They're becoming the janitor plus the marketer plus the personal trainer plus the bookkeeper, and they're doing all these things that all they ever wanted in the beginning was just to help people reach their physical goals, because they themselves probably either lost a bunch of weight or got into great shape after some adversity, and they wanted to help people do the same thing. And I've just seen so many gym owners get so frustrated with this whole process because they have this vision, but they never thought about, like, hey, am I going to be okay with working 80 hours a week? Am I going to be okay with not being able to travel? Am I going to be okay with having to take a big chunk of my income and hire another personal trainer or hire assistants in order to make this business work on its own? And or they don't have the mentorship or the education or the know-how to be able to build a business, and all they end up doing is being a slave to their business. And suddenly, before they know it, they don't even want to stay in the personal industry, personal training industry. They don't want to stay in the health and wellness industry because they're so jaded by everything that went from being a passion to forcing them to do that on the business's time, not on their time. They lose this choice. They lose this sense of freedom to enjoy it just as a passion rather than doing it as a business. So those are the reasons why I think passion is not that important. On the other side of it, the next question is, does it fit your skill set? Okay, so I'm looking now at, does this help you or does this fit your strengths? And so in Airbnb, I am not passionate about the hospitality industry. I'm not passionate about people getting a 5-star experience. That's not something that I'm just like waking up and just like, yeah, let's do it. No, but I am really skilled in communication, in systemization, in knowing how to scale, in helping other people make more money, in what are some other strengths here? In just knowing how to analyze a deal, getting the numbers down, seeing something and realizing like, hey, it could make us this much, but worst case scenario, it might only make us this much. Those are the things that I'm really good at. So communication, numbers, systemization, automation, scaling, all these things that I feel like I'm really good at, that Airbnb fits that strengths, all those strengths so well that it's like, okay, now I'm like really passionate about this business because it fits all my strengths and it's fitting my personal life of what I want out of my business as well. Okay, so let's stop for a second, recap some of these questions. How much time freedom? What will you do that time freedom? Number 2, will you want to travel? Number 3, is passion important to you, or is it something that you feel like you could lose the passion because you end up being a slave to your job? Will it fit your strengths versus being a passion? I just think that's a much better question. Is it going to fit your strengths? So number 5 is, what defines your version of financial freedom? And I say your version, not just financial freedom, because I think everyone runs their own race. I think everyone has their own desired lifestyle. And like for me, for example, I can live well beneath my means as long as I'm allowed to travel and have time freedom to do the things that I really want to do, to go play golf, to go volunteer at a dog shelter, to go see friends and live in different places for months at a time, to be able to be with family, to be able to do all these things that when I was financially stressed, I didn't feel like I was allowed to do, because if I can't even pay the bills on a monthly basis, then how am I going to be able to do those things? Now, I have other friends who are like, if I don't make $100,000 a month, I'm not going to be able to pay the bills because my lifestyle is that high. So where for me, it's like, hey, if I make $10,000 to $15,000 as passive as possible, on a monthly basis, which is really where our business is at now. And on the more active months, it's way more than that. But on the passive months, we're right in that neighborhood to where like that's all I need. But if you need $100,000 a month to be able to have the fancy things, to be able to, or maybe it's to donate as much as you can to causes that you really believe in. You have to define what is financial freedom for you, and is this business going to feed into that freedom? And is there a high likelihood, honestly, of it being able to feed into that freedom? I look back on my experience with being in a multi-level marketing company, and yeah, it was possible to be able to make six figures, not only a year, but a month. But the likelihood of it was so slim. There was so little amount of people actually doing that, versus like real estate. You see all these people in your own backyard that are doing it. And if you can just follow their system, you can duplicate it and do the exact same thing. So, um, next question, number 6. Do you want to be at a desk or do you want to be out in the field? I think that's really important because the extroverts are, if you know that your business is going to be driven off of data and numbers, and like Airbnb, I'm not in the field very much. I might go look at some houses every once in a while. But I'm really not out there doing a whole lot. I'm doing a lot of desk analysis. I'm doing a lot of number crunching. I'm doing most of the stuff if I'm communicating with guests, which is rare now these days, but I'm doing it from my phone. And so it's not really a in the field kind of business aside from just networking with people and going and seeing houses. If that sounds like it's going to drive you crazy, you probably shouldn't get into a business like Airbnb. You should probably be doing something more like starting a contracting business where you're going to be out there using your hands and at the houses and doing the work, and then eventually hiring a crew to do it for you, and getting your name out there by going to networking events and trying to get people to come and use you as a contractor. Like those, that's probably a better fit for you, right? Because you are either an extrovert or you're someone that likes getting your hands dirty and being out there. You need to define what type of business is going to help you either be at a desk, which I really enjoy, or being out in the field, which I also enjoy sometimes, but not most of the times. Number 7, can you, let's see, am I counting these right? We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah. Okay. So can you make it passive, and automate it? That's the big thing. So, to me, if you're going to be, let's just go back to the gym owner thing again. So most gym owners who are successful never find a way to make this passive or to automate it. In other words, they are either so ego driven that they're the only ones that can coach their clients well enough to be able to make a difference in their lives, or they're not educated enough or don't know how to attract people enough to come work for them and to be able to go and do the things that they're doing so that they can go take the vacations that they want. So is there a way to automate it? And for me in Airbnb, that's why I love it, because it's like, hey, I can use all these different technologies. I can hire on great people. I can hire virtual assistants, and they can literally take over all these systems, and allows me to not have to be at the houses, to not have to be on my phone all the time, to not have to do all these things, but to still focus on the things that I really love. And believe it or not, like I geek out on the first of every month. I love crunching the numbers of what do we make at every single property? What do we make for our investors? I love doing those spreadsheets, and like that's something at the end of the month that like that's like Christmas every single month for me, and I get to focus on that and do that every single month. Um, that just shows you how much of a numbers geek I am. But even that though, I can make that passive too. I can hire a virtual assistant and teach them how to crunch the numbers, do the bookkeeping, like what I do. There isn't one thing in this business that I can't myself automate, and that is so exciting for me. Even flipping houses, like I can teach someone how to go and crunch the numbers on a deal, how to hire the contractor so that literally you give them the keys and tell me when the project's done, and then we'll get the keys back and we'll go look at it. Um, there's just so many things within all of the real estate industry that you can automate and teach to other people. And the cool thing about that is you can pay them really well. And suddenly now you have a very happy employee or contractor, independent contractor that wants to keep on doing business with you. So That also leads to, if you can make it passive and you can automate it, can you scale it? So with me and in Airbnb, I know that I can scale this very easily. I get a new property, I plug it into our system. If we don't have enough people to be able to take on, like we just added 7 new properties and it was basically a 10-day period. Um, we hired on a brand new virtual assistant to be able to make sure we're keeping up with all the communication with guests. We made sure that we had all of our scheduling in place, and my assistant is one of the ones that does all the scheduling. So, the ability to scale this is much different than making it passive or automating it. So I can make, again, going back to the gym industry, I can make a gym passive and automated, but I still have a capacity for how many people can fit into one gym. I have a ceiling of how many clients I can help out in one building. However, if I go get another building, I can now double the amount of clients I can help. Or if I turn my business into an online business where I'm helping people virtually, and especially doing it in like a course setting or in a group fitness setting, now suddenly I've made this thing scalable. And so if that's something that it has and the ability to scale it, now it's just asking yourself, how far do you want to scale it? And that leads me to my very last question, number 9. Can you exit? Is there a way that if this thing becomes wildly successful or wildly unsuccessful, you have the ability to exit, ideally profitably, but at least exit without anything being left on the table? And I can tell you, I was in a business that was very difficult to exit back when I was in my mid 20s. It was probably about a 3-year process of exiting that business because we had so many clients that were expecting work for us for years and years. But in Airbnb, I have a very easily exitable business, whether that is something that is forced upon me eventually or able to sell. I can today know that, hey, listen, this thing makes nets, 6 figures. I could sell this thing today for X amount of dollars and hand over all these systems and all these employees and all these people to this person and sell that business. Or if Airbnb for some reason takes a hit or the short-term rentals industry takes a hit, I know that all of my properties that I have are either exitable or they're, in other words, able to be sold. I can break leases, or I can now put a long-term tenant in there and be just as good off. So that, I think, is the most important question. And I left it for the last one because if you don't have an exit, you might be a slave to the business for your entire life. And that's not something that you ever want to be, right? Especially if you lose that passion that you had in the beginning. That's a sad thing to think, that you would be tied to something that you used to be so passionate about. Now it feels like just an obligation and something that you have to do because you're forced to do it. That I don't want anyone to have to deal with that. And so that's why at the end of the day, I think you need to ask yourself these 9 questions to decide what type of business, or if the business that you're trying to go into is that the business that you really confidently can answer all these 9 questions and know that it's going to feed into the type of lifestyle that you want. If you found this valuable today, I would love for you to comment on this on the YouTube channel. I would love for you to review us on the podcast and reference this episode. Or I would just love for you to DM me on Instagram and tell me about the business that you're either in or want to get into, and maybe the struggle with one of these 9 questions. Maybe you're stuck on, hey, can I really scale this? And I don't really know if I can. Or, hey, how did you, automate Airbnb? Anything like that you want to ask in regards to this, I would love to be able to have a conversation with you. So at Fearless Kyle is our Instagram. You can find all of our resources, information on the web, fearlesskyle.com. And would love to be able to just help you guys continue to conquer the world of investing. So thanks for being with us, and just go and follow these 9 questions to decide what type of business that you want to start in your lifestyle. We'll talk to you next time.